So Jonathan, you know that I'm on a GLP-1 and I'm now getting to the 15 mg dose, and I've probably only got about £30 left to lose. If I was to come off the GLP-1, will I regain weight? And I'm asking that question because as a carnivore, I'm wondering if I'm protected or not.
That's a good question. So I may make a mental note of this if I need to remind about where I'm at. The first thing I want to cover is the mass balance model. The second thing I want to cover is the dopaminergic response. And the third thing I want to cover is the lifestyle habit forming point. So the first point, the mass balance model. So Joe, when you started your GLP-1 journey, I'm going to use very arbitrary numbers here. So apologies to the audience if you want specifics, but you have to ask Joe separately. But now let's say she started 350 pounds. Now let's say she was carnivore when she started, but it didn't quite do the job. It didn't quite get to a goal. She wants to add something, a GLP-1, to help her with her weight loss goals. Brilliant, fine, fair enough. You know, she used the most ultimate elimination diet known to man, didn't quite do the job. So she did the next best thing. So she's tried her best, you know. So the next thing, we're looking at something called the mass balance model. And now this is different to something called the energy balance theory. So what I'm talking about here, it does sound scientific, it does sound odd, it does sound a bit out of the box, but this is what science has shown. Now, the energy balance theory is basically looking at the idea that we have a certain amount of units of energy that we take in from food in the form of what people use as calories. Now, say, for example, Joe was consuming 2,000 calories per day at 350 pounds. Let's just say it was that number. For her to get to half that body weight, so say 175 pounds, if she did ever want to, the calorie amount in theory would be about 1,000 calories. But would it? No. There's certain metabolic shifts that happen which prevent that from happening. So the output side of it is what changes. So Joe could be eating 2,000 calories of the same food every single day, and her weight would theoretically stay about the same. The problem is if she adds in too much carbs one day, if her fat's too low one day, her protein's too high or too low, that will all affect the output side of the equation. So it means the calorie side, the taking in bit, it's not even that accurate, but if we just measure that bit, it's say 2,000 calories. The output, what the body does with that 2,000 calories, will be totally different depending on what the composition is of that calorie energy amount. The next thing that I'm saying is that the mass balance model is a different theory altogether. This isn't Jason fucking Fung, it's something completely different. So Jason Fung has got part of it correct, yes, but in practice it doesn't really paint the whole picture. So the mass balance model, I'll put the author below and I'll link a playlist below as well. It'll be called the CICO playlist in the description. And I'll explain everything in more detail if you want more detail. But the mass balance model is effectively looking at the amount of total mass of food that you take in and how it reflects upon your body composition outcomes long term. What they did was perform meta-analysis, which basically looked at people who did the calories in, calories out energy balance theory, and looked at people who counted macros. And they found in terms of like the trend across the board, or people could say, I eat this much food and it produces that outcome, was more relevant, more specific, and more accurate if you're looking at the mass of food that you're taking in. So that means Joe was eating 200 grams of protein, 200 grams of fat or something, and say 10 grams of carbs per day. Okay, fine. That's how much mass she is eating. Now, if you made that same number, but in calories, that could be anything. That could be a massive deviation of results. So it doesn't give you a whole in and out process. So you're actually being less scientific, you're being less helpful to yourself, less efficient, less effective at tracking what you're eating if you're measuring the calorie or energy amount of food. So you should be measuring the mass of food. So a person, in theory, would actually be better off macro tracking or doing, say they ate a kilo of meat every day. They'd be better off using that as their measurement than they would be doing, 2,000 calories per day. So it kind of makes sense that you're trying to focus on what food is constituted of rather than the actual theoretical energy amount of it, because you can't measure that, because there's no way that you can't. We don't live in labs. We don't live in what's called a bomb calorimeter, which measures the amount of energy it takes for the measurement of calories to raise 1 centimeter of water by 1 degree Celsius. That's what a calorie is. But because we breathe, we take in food, we have hormonal element, different oxidation rates. That means the calorie amount of the food can be different between what I eat and what Joe eats. So Joe could eat the same diet as me, but she'd have a completely different cellular and metabolic response. So the first thing I've covered, the mass balance model. So people need to be effectively, in practice, the sort of point here is they need to be tracking the amount of food they're eating in grams or protein, carbs and fats. That's going to give people the best results. The second one, I believe, was the dopaminergic response.
Yeah.
So that kind of relates to how different GLP-1s have been useful for reducing addictive behaviors. So people use these things to have a better understanding of their satiety signals, when they're hungry, when they're not. And what the people find is, I mean, anyone out there will probably know, it takes something like 4 to 6 weeks to build a habit and make it into a lifestyle change. But for a lot of people, they can't get to the initial even 4 weeks of that. So GLP-1 will help them even get to that point. So they change their mindset shift. What they'll find is maybe they vape less, maybe they drink alcohol less. People tend to have less of a strong dopamine hit in response to certain social or food triggers. So it means those Doritos that were perfectly engineered with $30 million investment per year from food scientists to make them addictive can no longer work against you, because you're using a drug which prevents that. So that you're actually offsetting big food. So big pharma is actually taking on big food in essence. So what I'd say is, if you can sort of get your gut microbiome to change from the impact of your diet over a period of about 3 weeks, that's what's going to change your brain signaling, how your body recognizes food and nutrients. So if you said to me, I can't live without chocolate and bread, yeah, you probably can't in your brain. Your brain is telling you that. Now, tell me again, after 4 to 6 weeks of not eating it at all, imagine I could do the diet for someone and just switch their biology and say, I'm going to take control of your body. I'm going to eat the food for you and do all the stuff for you. You're going to come back in your brain, and your brain chemistry will match my brain chemistry at that point. They might not even care about chocolate. They might not even think about chocolate or bread, because over that period of time, they've transitioned their metabolic turnover rate to more closely match a diet which is more appropriate for what they're trying to achieve for their body and their health, weight loss, things like that. So that covers the dopaminergic response part of it. Now, what was the third part? Do you remember that one?
I don't remember.
Oh no.
It was.
Okay, let me think.
Remember, the question was that how do I ensure I don't regain the weight, and will carnivore help?
Yeah. Yes. The third part would be the adaptive response of your gut microbiome to the food that you're taking in. So if you've been successful with your diet, and say on your GLP-1 that it's giving you a 90% adherence rate to what you're meant to be doing to achieve your goals, versus whatever you're doing before, which maybe give you like a 10% adherence rate. Yeah. So you automatically change significantly how frequently you can hit your targets each day with your food intake to match what your goals are based on, whatever you're trying to achieve. Now, so if you've changed your gut microbiome, and that typically takes about 3 weeks, what you're going to find is that your addictive behaviors will reduce significantly. So therefore, there's more of a dramatic long-term shift. And what I'd say is kind of an inbuilt perk in that you can taper off these things, but you have to be very careful with them. But the benefit of them is they can still be used because they're still naturally occurring peptides within the body. So your body still produces GLP-1, not for very long, maybe a minute or two in response to food. But the signal you're getting from these GLP-1 drugs in comparison to a more satiating diet alone is drastically significant. So let's say, I'm going to give some arbitrary numbers, but it's theoretical really. Now let's say a carnivore diet, high protein diet, gives you 5 out of 10 adherence, and standard Western diet with cookies and marshmallows and Pop-Tarts gives you 1% adherence towards what you're trying to achieve. A GLP-1 would give you 10 out of 10 adherence, relatively speaking. Not for everyone, but a GLP-1s versus high protein carnivore diet, they're not like for like. The GLP-1s, the signaling level in the body is drastically higher and longer acting than what you get from a carnivore diet. Now, if you synergize the two, so use a carnivore, a keto, or a low carb animal protein based diet alongside the GLP-1, then you've got effectively 15 out of 10. So it's so hard to actually fall off your diet. And I've used these medications myself, and I would say I have pretty much no inkling to fall off my diet at all. I have no interest whatsoever in eating other foods. I'll see things and I'll think, oh, that looks nice. I remember when I used to have this with my nan. I remember when I sat down with Joe in the restaurant when we had this special sauce or something. I can look at things and still enjoy them and think, oh, that was pleasant. But I'm not looking back at them thinking, oh, I wish I had that. I'm not yearning for food anymore. So I guess that's how it'd link alongside the carnivore diet. And I mean, if say you're using a carnivore diet and you've made these metabolic and gut microbiome shifts to favor fatty acids and proteins, amino acids and things, then long term it's going to be more sustainable. So even if say you're 90% carnivore, you're still significantly better than the person that's following a standard Western diet. So you may actually go off the drug after maintenance sort of phase. Say you've got down to 200 pounds, you may go off the drug and say get to week 4, the drug's mostly left your system, but you still got the carnivore diet. Even if that's 90% adherent, that's significantly better than what you're doing before. So I think the benefit is additive in a sense. But it's also important to be mindful that you still have to remember that you started GLP-1 because of your eating behaviors. So these behaviors can always return back to what they were before. So you have to be mindful of using other tools around you. So it might be a case of joining support groups. Maybe you join a gym. Maybe you teach your family how to eat better and eat less, processed food. If the social surroundings around you then help support what you're trying to do, it's that much less of an uphill battle. So people that are watching this video, they might be thinking, oh, I'm following the YouTube videos, I'm doing this high protein carnivore diet, I'm using a GLP-1. Yeah, that does fill most of the sort of quotient, I guess you could say, to reach your goals and sustain them. There's always more to it. So I encourage people not to sort of lay on their laurels and think, oh, I'm doing it all right and I've dropped the weight and I can just stop now. No, you still have to remember. I mean, it sounds a bit harsh, a bit brash. I always tell the truth on my channel, but if someone has used a GLP-1 because they have some disordered eating of some sort, something has gone wrong along the way that requires them to need it. That's if they're using it for the medically prescribed sort of purposes, so weight loss, type 2 diabetes, things like that. So you always have to be mindful that you have that predisposition, I guess, to say, as you could say, of eating bad foods. But if you return your diet to something that is sustainable long term, it's better than what you're doing before, you're going to end up with a better sort of physique and health outcomes to prove it. So
great point. And I think that's really interesting, because for me personally, with me being on the sleep and slim down journey, my problem was I was unable to sleep. I was suffering really bad with sleep apnea, which I think you mentioned that increases the willingness to eat more rubbish. So regardless of me saying, oh, I'm a carnivore, and thinking that I'm regularly choosing carnivore, and forgetting that in times of distress, I was going to be eating some of the calorific and the more carby stuff. And my body was in a lot of distress all the time. So I must have been eating more of the rubbish, even though subconsciously I was always a carnivore.
Part of being a good scientist or nutritionist is tying together the dots. And it sounds quite anti-science, But the thing is, there isn't really any hard science out there. I mean, a lot of the things I've suggested today are based on anecdotes, based on surveys, based on some mechanisms, some epidemiology, things like that. But ultimately, a lot of it comes down to mitochondrial dysfunction. And if you put crap in your body will do crap with it, not the things you want it to do. So, I mean, the main benefit I actually think, which is not spoken about, is the increase in mitogenesis. So mitochondrial recreation, resynthesis, redistribution around your body. And people with addictive behaviors might have less mitochondria, or the mitochondria might not be working efficiently in the brain, which means that the nutrition that they're taking in isn't actually creating energy in the brain that they want it to. So therefore, they've not got this pool of energy to deal with, emotional stress, depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, brain fog. Then they defer back to something they think gives them energy, because, we think of, you go for a run, you think, oh, I'm tired now. I've burnt off a lot of calories doing that. I'm going to eat a Snickers bar. That's the last thing you want to do. Because automatically you've turned off mitogenesis. Your brain's actually become less biologically efficient, which means you're then going to be more deterred from staying to a diet that you should be staying on, and your blood glucose level is more irregular, which is a mitochondrial poison. Too much sugar in your body gives what's called glycation to the endothelium layer of the blood vessels, which basically inflames them, which means more stuff has to go to repair them, which means it's not being used for essential things which your body would be doing day to day, like functioning well, like having a clear brain, things like that. So you have to sort of default to a more sensible diet, and you don't start a GLP-1, eat pizza once a day, but then because you're on a sort of calorie deficit, so to speak, you're not going to go around doing that and thinking, oh, I'm going to be long-term sustaining these results, because it is still a poison. So, like I said, crap in equals crap out.
I think we're going to leave it on that. That's a great finishing line.
Build muscle and lose fat on the carnivore diet.